The streets of Bellwood were coated in a thick layer of ice, the bitter chill of winter cutting through the air. Most people hurried along, heads down, bracing against the cold. Among them was Melanie Carter, a woman in her early 40s, dressed in a thick coat and scarf, her boots crunching on the frozen ground as she made her way to work with her books and cup of coffee at hand. As she approached the corner of Maple Street, her eyes caught sight of an elderly woman struggling with a walking stick. The woman's frail figure wobbled precariously on the slippery sidewalk, and for a moment, Melanie hesitated. She thought about the risk of falling herself, the delay it might cause to her schedule, and the effort it would take. But as she began to walk past, something tugged at her conscience. With a deep sigh, she turned back. "Excuse me, ma'am. Do you need some help?" she asked, her tone tentative but sincere. The elderly woman, her face lined with pain but her eyes warm, nodded gratefully. "Oh, bless you, dear. I'm trying to get to the clinic. My arthritis is acting up something fierce." Melanie offered her arm, steadying the woman as they made their slow, careful way to the clinic. The journey was fraught with small slips and shivers, but they eventually arrived safely. As the woman was led inside by a nurse, she turned back to Melanie and said, "Thank you, my dear. My name's Eleanor. I hope we meet again." That encounter stayed with Melanie. She couldn't shake the image of Eleanor's grateful smile and the thought of how something so simple as an offer of help had made a difference. It sparked a change in her. She began noticing others in need. Melanie started purchasing medications for those who couldn't afford them and volunteering at the local shelter. Her small acts of kindness grew into a habit, and soon, she became a familiar face in the community, always ready to lend a hand. One frosty morning, as Melanie walked down Maple Street, she noticed a shelf placed outside a small shop. The sign above read, "Eleanor's Book Nook." Intrigued, Melanie approached the shelf and picked up a book. To her surprise, the title read, "Kindness is the thread that binds us, pass it on." Curious, she stepped inside and was greeted by the cozy warmth of the bookstore. Shelves lined with books filled the room, many of them dedicated to stories and teachings about kindness and compassion. Eleanor, her walking stick propped against the counter, smiled warmly. "I've been hoping you'd stop by. Why don't we have some tea at my house?" Later that afternoon, Melanie found herself in Eleanor's modest but inviting home. They sat by a table in the sitting room, sipping tea and sharing stories. Eleanor spoke about her love for books and her mission to spread kindness through the written word. She revealed that she had run the bookstore for decades, curating its collection to inspire others. Melanie felt a deep connection to Eleanor, their bond forged through that single act of kindness on an icy street. They continued to meet regularly, sharing tea and conversations about life and compassion. A few days later, Melanie received a letter from Eleanor's lawyer. In it, she learned that Eleanor had left the bookstore to her, along with a heartfelt note. "Dear Melanie, your kindness has touched my heart in ways I cannot express. I trust you to carry forward the mission of this bookstore. May it continue to inspire and uplift others as it has for me. With love, Eleanor." Overwhelmed by the gesture, Melanie vowed to honor Eleanor's legacy. She took over the bookstore, dedicating herself to its mission. She expanded its collection, hosting community events, book readings, and kindness drives. The bookstore became a hub of hope and compassion, drawing people from all walks of life. One evening, as Melanie prepared to close for the day, a young woman entered the store, holding a book she had purchased a week earlier. "I just wanted to say thank you," the woman said, her voice filled with emotion. "This book on kindness has changed the way I see the world. I'm so grateful." Melanie's heart swelled with pride and purpose. She thanked the young woman, watched her leave, and then walked to the light switch. She paused for a moment, taking in the warm, inviting atmosphere of the bookstore before switching off the lights. As she locked the door and stepped out into the crisp night air, she looked up at the starry sky and smiled. Eleanor's legacy of kindness lived on, and Melanie knew she was exactly where she was meant to be.